Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Alienware AW2523HF. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same monitor, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but let's jump into it. All right, right off the bat, this is a 24.5-inch monitor. So that 25 is actually, well, 24.5, they like to round up. This is an esports centered gaming monitor with a resolution of 1920 by 1080p. Now this brings the PPI, or pixels per inch, essentially how crisp and clear the image is going to appear to your eye. This brings it to about 90 pixels per inch. Now, this means small text is going to have visible pixelation. Medium-sized text may or may not have visible pixelation based on your viewing distance, depending on if you sit closer or farther away. Now, during gameplay, obviously, does this matter as much? Well, the answer is no, because you're gonna need as much help as you can get to push the very high frames that this monitor requires to take full advantage of everything that it has to offer. As for the panel type, this uses a fast IPS panel, which means great viewing angles, great gaming performance, and great colors, although the colors kind of are lacking here, but still pretty good. All right, refresh rate and variable refresh rate. This obviously hits 360 Hertz, very, very fast. That is the point of this monitor. And this has FreeSync Premium. Now, this also does work with G-Sync. It is not NVIDIA certified G-Sync compatible, but it does work well with G-Sync. However, that's only through the DisplayPort. Through HDMI's, FreeSync will work, but G-Sync does not. All right, now for brightness and HDR. The last generation of this monitor also had very good brightness, and this one is no exception here. This has a rating from Dell of 400 nits, but after testing, it's actually reached around 450 nits, which is great. Overall, brightness is very good. If you're in a bright room, this will keep away reflections, and it does help with that vibrancy. As for HDR, the overall performance of handling brighter scenes and things like that is good, but HDR is just lacking. With the lack of a larger contrast ratio, overall this HDR experience is not fantastic. The color gamut also doesn't help the HDR experience. So while this thing is fantastic in SDR, HDR is just not the thing that I'm gonna have it in most of the time, or you, because again, esports centered monitor focused on speed. When you're gonna turn HDR on, it's going to increase that input lag a little bit. Gaming is still gonna be totally fine, but if the point is pure speed and performance, SDR is where you're gonna keep it in, and that's fine because the SDR is really the mode that I would keep it in most of the time. Now, colors. Firstly, this covers 99% of the sRGB color gamut, and this is overall great for SDR. And that's kind of the point here. HDR is lacking, like I said, but SDR is great. Accuracy out of the box is pretty good, not exceptional. The color temperature is a little bit cool in the standard colorway, at least on my unit. And the panel was overall not quite vibrant enough for me to game on. Now, most people getting this monitor probably will not care about the overall accuracy. You're probably not gonna be doing photo and video editing on this. You could do some light maybe gameplay editing. If you're screen recording on this or have a webcam, that's probably not too important for you, so you can absolutely do some YouTube video editing. But this is what I did during part of the testing process before color calibrating this monitor, and that is I set this to the custom color profile, which actually fixed the coolness problem. Not perfect, but pretty accurate as far as the color temperature, so that fixed that. Then I bumped up the saturation across the board to about 67%, and overall in game that made it look, well, more like real natural. Out of the box, again, this looked cool and a little bit drab. After that, I mean, I was very happy with the colors. It looks very vibrant. You mix that with the brightness, which is very high, and it's a very enjoyable panel to game on. Desktop usage, not my favorite out there. I would prefer much more resolution if I'm doing mainly desktop usage, but if you're gaming, have a little bit of desktop usage, I think this is great. Moving to contrast ratio, it is exactly what you'd expect from an IPS panel with a 1000:1 contrast ratio. Those blacks are not gonna be super dark, but again, do we really care about that with an esports gaming monitor? Probably not. Would it be nice? Absolutely. Would I take it? Absolutely, but this is a good price tag for the amount of performance. As for backlight bleed, my unit had absolutely none. One thing we're gonna talk about before moving into the real gaming performance, and that is the matte finish. This matte finish is not the worst, it's not the best. It's kind of right there in the middle. It does have a little bit of that oil slick effect on white screen. So white parts of the screen may have that kind of oil slick effect. You're never really gonna notice this during gameplay, but if you're on the desktop and you're having tabs open on your browser, you may notice that. Some people are more susceptible to noticing this and really focus in on it like I do, but I would say 90% of people don't care about this, but I had to mention it. Okay, but now response time, ghosting, and input lag. These are really, really important for this monitor. So how does it do? All right, well, firstly, Dell Alienware claims a 0.5 millisecond gray to gray response time, but honestly, who cares about those numbers? We want to know how is ghosting affected. Well, it's pretty close to perfect, being almost crystal clear. All of the settings I noticed have a little bit of pixel overshooting, so it's kind of going towards this end of the ghosting tuning, not normal ghosting. Now, in fast, there is the least amount of pixel overshooting or inverse ghosting, and then it just goes up from there to super fast and extreme. Extreme has a little bit too much pixel overshooting or inverse ghosting, so I would say you can kind of pick between fast and super fast. Both overall have very, very little ghosting, as you'll see in these clips here, so ghosting is not really an issue. As for input lag, this is exactly what you'd expect from an esports grade gaming monitor. At 360 Hz, this has some of the lowest input lag that we've seen. If you're looking for a monitor that does it all, this isn't even close. But if you're looking for speed and performance above all, this does extremely well while still giving you a pretty decent experience when outside of gaming. All right, now the menu system and controls. Dell Alienware actually got this quite right here. All right, so firstly, this uses a joystick to control the monitor on the bottom middle chin. That's the perfect location and the perfect way to control it. The controls are super easy and they're very intuitive with basically no learning curve. This also has a dedicated power button with a nice LED over on that right side. The menu system itself is good, it's functional, although it's a little pixelated and it doesn't look the best, but there's a lot of different settings you can change. Things are well labeled, easy to understand, easy to read. So overall, full pass. Now for Vesa compatibility, this is compatible with 100mm by 100mm Vesa mounts. I'm sure quite a lot of you may mount this, although that stand is quite nice. But first, let's talk about the ports. This has one DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.0s, a USB Type-B upstream, and then 4 USB Type-A downstreams, with 2 of those being behind the monitor where all the other ports are, and then 2 of them being on the bottom, slightly to the left chin. That is fantastic. Also, I do want to mention, without having that USB Type-B upstream plugged in, you still get power to the USBs. This means if you need to charge your headphones, which I did quite a lot, you do not need that USB Type-B upstream plugged in, which is really, really cool. This is something that you'd be surprised on how little monitors do this. Almost all of, if not all LG monitors have to have either a USB Type-C upstream or a USB Type-B upstream to get any sort of power to their USB Type-As, whereas Dell has always done this. This is fantastic. I charge my headphones so many times. Now, along with those 2 USB Type-As that are kind of down there on the chin, you also get a 3.5mm audio out, and you get another secondary one next to all those display ports. And I don't mean display port, I mean display ports. Let's talk about the stand and build quality. Alienware always gets this right. There's no exception here. This is a little bit of a newer stand, but it's got height, tilt, swivel, and rotation going completely vertical. It's great overall. It feels premium, it functions well, it's very easy to move it in all of those movements. It just feels premium. Cable management is also pretty good. The power cable, you kind of have to pull it back a little bit, but overall it's fairly easy to completely hide the cables, which I do appreciate. The overall design and build quality is pretty much just Alienware. It's what you'd expect. It looks like it came from the mothership, so they did their job well. All right, but now the last and, well, possibly the most important section of the video, price and value. This retails for $449.99, so basically 450 bucks. That is $200 down from the previous generation. So they've brought the price down considerably, which I really like. As a consumer-oriented reviewer, I'm very big on how much value are you getting for your money. There's a lot of value here. This is one of the best 360 Hz monitors out there for a low price point. So do I recommend this monitor? Well, if you prioritize speed over everything, but still want a fairly decent experience outside of gaming, this is a great monitor and I absolutely recommend it. Again, if you want to check it out, there are Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. Hard to go wrong with a very fast refresh rate Alienware monitor like this, and now at a much lower price point. We're not seeing these Alienware monitors at premium price tags, which I'm really, really digging. That's something that I wasn't expecting. I think we've all had the thought that Alienware is always a little bit more of a premium brand, kind of like Razer, but they're bringing it in terms of saving you money, going a little bit more budget. Really, really cool. All right, this is Type C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.